Lean on Pete, directed by Andrew Haig, who had made, I think it's his fourth feature. Tom Courtenay came on when he was talking about 45 years before that was Weekend. Based on this novel by Willie Vlautin. I hadn't read the novel before. It's the story of a young kid. He's in Portland. His father is kind of not really doing what he needs to do as a father because he's just got a job there. They lead a peripatetic lifestyle. They've moved from one place to the next. And he's looking for a family. He's looking for love. He's looking for something to fill the gap in his life. He, wanted to be a football player, but they keep moving school. And he's a runner, and he's running past the Portland Meadows track, and he sees Steve Buscemi's Dell changing a tyre, being very grumpy, and he offers to help him. Steve Buscemi gives him $5 and then says, "You want to help with the horses?" And then he basically bonds with this horse, who's a short sprint runner, blink and you'll miss it, called Lean on Pete. And Lean on Pete has had a sort of, his moment in the sun. And what keeps being said is that when the horses are no longer profitable for Dell, they'll be sent to Mexico, which is a euphemism for something, much worse. And he comes to realise that Pete is probably getting close to that. If he doesn't win all his races, he's going to be sent by Dell to Mexico, in inverted commas. And so about halfway through the film, a sort of an odyssey begins, which is, him and his now new best friend searching for somewhere to spiritually call home. And what I really like about the film, there's so much to like about it. Firstly, that thing about the American landscape, and the film's 185, not 235, and so you get,
just explain what that.
Well, it's not an ultra wide screen. It's a closer screen, so that the image is much more. The best way of describing this, a 4:3, an Academy image, a sort of square image, is very good for faces. 166, 185 are very good for people. 235, which is the widest one, is very good for landscape. And the problem is that people can get lost in that landscape. And one of the things that they've managed to do with the framing of this film is to always put the central character of Charlie right there in the middle. So even when you're looking at the landscapes, some of the landscapes are urban, some of them are desert, there are those incredible skies, but it's a tall image. I was thinking while I was watching it, incidentally, of Andrea Arnold's American Honey, which is a 4:3 Academy ratio film, I think. But there's a lot of sky in that film. It's expansive, but it's the sky above that's expansive. And it's one of those. It's a film in which every single character is dealt with even-handedly. As I said, the father is not perfect, but he does appear to love his son. Dell is gruff, and he's a chancer, and he dopes and then disposes of his horses. But he also has an oddly paternal air sometimes with Charlie. On the other side, you get the Chloe Sevigny character of Bonnie, who in a version of this narrative that we've all seen before would automatically become a kind of maternal presence, but she doesn't, because that's not who she is. And she's introduced by saying that she's a jockey who has had too many accidents, and she says you can only fall down a certain number of times, right? And what I loved was all those things, which I understand you with the conversation you're having about distilling the novel. All those things appear to have been perfectly chosen, so that when people are speaking, everything they say is important, even though it doesn't seem important. So even casual conversations are telling you stuff that they're not telling you directly. But it's that show don't tell thing, because for a large section of the movie, it is Charlie and the horse together, and the only person that's talking is Charlie, and he's kind of almost confessing to the horse. He's talking about his inner anxieties and his inner feelings to the horse. And obviously the horse, being a horse and not being Mr. Ed, isn't talking back. So the dialogue is monologue for a start, but it feels like a dialogue because you feel like you're involved in a conversation with the characters. I thought it was really moving. And I did go in thinking, Lean on Pete? What kind of title of a film is that?
But it's not a very good title.
You could call it almost anything and it would be sort of more attractive. But I was really brought into it. I really bought into the characters. I love the fact that everybody was dealt with even-handedly and that nobody felt like they were vilified. It felt like a film with a very big heart, even though a lot of the story is dark and downbeat and occasionally really scary. There was a couple of moments in it which I felt really, really creeped out by the narrative, but I enjoyed it very much.